We'll now speak to Amjad Abu El Ezz, who's a political analyst and the head of the social science department at the Arab American University in Ramallah, joining us from there. Thanks for your time. So Israel has not formally declared war in the occupied West Bank, but as we're saying, it's dramatically escalated military operations since October the 7th. Why do you think we're seeing such an increase, and what's Israel trying to achieve?
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's obvious that there's an Israeli plan. It's been planned a long time ago. I mean, and being announced even by the Minister of, the Ministry of Finance, and he said that 2025 is going to be a decisive year. We're going to have built more settlements and to get rid of the Palestinians if we can. So the dream of the far-right ministers in Netanyahu's government is to solve the West Bank problem simply by getting rid of the Palestinians, mainly in the refugee camps. We are talking about more than 20 refugee camps. 500,000 Palestinians live in these refugee camps. So the Israelis targeting these people for two reasons. We're talking about short-term policy and long-term. For short-term, making the life of the Palestinian refugees in these places impossible, pushing them, force them to leave, so that because they think that the refugee camps is the host of the Palestinian resistance. It's military operations, started on these areas. So that's pushing people, convincing people by making their life in these places impossible by destroying their houses, fire, destroy the infrastructure.
So when was the last time we saw the scale and intensity in the occupied West Bank?
And actually, this is the longest operations in the history of the conflict. We're talking about in Jenin, more than 2 months now. The Jenin camps being targeted, and now they moved to Nablus. Recently, they move to Al Ain refugee camp in Nablus. As I mentioned, they are a long-term policy to build more settlements, to increase the number of settlers, to build a safe environment to convince more settlers to move to the West Bank. So as I mentioned, by building more military operation, more strict, more checkpoints, more demolishing houses, that's what they're looking for.
So look, earlier this week, Mr. Abu El Ezz, let me just ask you this. Earlier this week, Netanyahu said, while we're waging a powerful war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, we are aware of the possibility that a larger and more powerful front could open up in the West Bank. So by characterizing it in this way, as a war front, is he trying to justify the increasingly harsh measures that we're seeing taken against the Palestinians?
Exactly. That's happening in Gaza. Now it's happening in refugee camps. And if you look at in Jenin for refugee camps, we can't see any kind of resistance. I mean, what they are trying to do, they are demolishing more houses. They are building more military facilities in the refugee camps, building new houses. They want to change the structure of the refugee camps, mainly to get rid of the concept of Nakba. Because if you look at what they did, they closed down, they shut down the UNRWA, and now they are targeting the residents in this area, accusing them they are part of the military group, they hosting the resistance. But I mean, of course, there's a domestic policy as well. So Netanyahu want to please his alliance, he want to keep the coalitions. He has elections to look for, right. So and actually a government to keep. So it's part of his policy and actually look at the refugee camps as a threat.
What options do the resistance groups in the occupied West Bank have? And also, is this scenario of accelerated annexation that we're seeing, is it a scenario that the authorities in Ramallah are taking seriously?
I mean, there's a silent annexation, and that had actually been supported by President Trump when he asked, he did that, you can do your policy in a silent way. You don't need to provoke the media by your policy. So that's what we have seen in the ground. They are building more outputs. They are spreading more guns for the settlers. And we see we are witnessing more increase of the attacks on the settlers and the protect of the Israeli army. So we see that we are witnessing kind of annexations in a silent way in order to not to provoke the international community. I mean, the Palestinian Authority in a critical condition now. They cannot work in Area C. They are actually been weakening. Every day there's a new law against the Palestinian Authority by drawing its economic facilities, drawing its their income, and also they targeting their areas. So the Palestinian Authority in a very critical conditions on the large scale, an employment rate even in West Bank, in refugee camps, in getting increasing month after month.
Okay.
So economically, politically, the Palestinian Authority now is getting weak.
Thank you, Amjad Abu El Ezz, political analyst, speaking to us from Ramallah. Thank you so much for your time.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.